Am fost primul palestinian care a aterizat la Madrid în octombrie 1991 pentru negocierile de pace. La vremea respectivă nu aveam părab și nu eram căsătorit. Astăzi fiul meu este la universitate, fiica mea va merge la universitate anul viitor și eu am încărunțit. Așa a descris Mohammad Shtayyeh, ministrul responsabil cu negocierile pentru pace din partea Palestinei, durata lungă a discuțiilor care sunt blocate în acest moment. How does one become a negotiator?
Negotiation has nothing to do with how clever you are. It is important. And negotiation has nothing to do whether you are saying something logical or not logical. It is important, but doesn't count. There are two things that are there on the negotiating table: power and interest. So you negotiate how much power do you have on the table. That is important. And to try to convince the other side that it is a mutual interest. What we are doing here is a win-win situation. I'm not here to make you lose, and I'm not here to lose. So let's find the best deal for both, which always be not good for both. And the other important issue, you need an honest broker. So these are and maybe on top of all, negotiation and peace in general is a matter of intention. Do you have good intention? Do you really want to reach an agreement? Or you are there not to be blamed that you are sabotaging the process and so on and so forth. So this is really the package of what is needed and how do you become a negotiator.
But these are very general principles. Can you illustrate them during a negotiation that you held and you applied those principles?
Look, when we had Yitzhak Rabin as a prime minister of Israel, Rabin, he wanted to make peace with us. He had all the good intention, and he created confidence building without any much intermediation. We had the Norwegians mediating the Oslo Agreement. But since the assassination of Rabin, things have totally changed. Now, today, we have a time frame, which is for 9 months. Today, we have a broker, which is Secretary Kerry. Now, we know also that the United States has a strategic relationship with Israel. And we know that the Israeli government every day, they keep saying, we are not going to withdraw from the Palestinian territory. Jerusalem is ours. No right of return to the refugees. All these statements, it tells me that the Israelis, they don't have a good intention. They are not serious about the negotiations. Then we come to the confidence building measures. What the Israeli government today is doing, they are actually destroying the measures rather than constructing the measures, confidence building measures. Let me give you examples. Since we started this process, 31 Palestinians have been killed. 216 houses have been destroyed. 500 Palestinians were made homeless, and 516 Palestinians were arrested since we started this process on the 29th of July 2013 until today. So, and the most important thing is that Israel has announced the bids for the construction of 7,622 settlement units. So, where are the confidence building measures? These are all expression of bad intention. It shows that the other side is not serious. And the most important thing is that you are destroying the confidence and you are not building confidence. Now, but still, we know that sometimes what is said to the media is not what happens in the rooms. We know that. But in the case of Israel, believe me, what they see in the rooms sometimes is more difficult than what they say in the media. So the situation, in my opinion, it's very difficult. When you go to negotiations, you try to make the gap narrower, you narrow the gap. And then the intermediator, he feels that the gap, like 1 meter is left, he build a bridge. They call it a bridge proposal, to bring the gaps together. What is happening between us and the Israelis today is we started here and the gap is growing and not narrowing because of what the Israelis are saying, because of the new demands that the Israelis, for example, to give you an example, it was never an issue of negotiations, the Jewish state. It's not an issue of negotiation. The issues of negotiations are Jerusalem, refugees, borders, security, Jewish settlements, and the prisoners. Then the Israelis came with this condition that they want us to recognize Israel as a Jewish state.
But this was already recognized in the Oslo Agreement, wasn't it?
Bravo. Because we already, on the 9th of September, 1993, there was an exchange of letters of recognition between Ishaq Rabin and Yasser Arafat. So recognition is already done. Why is it that you're bringing the issue of the Jewish state again now? Because the Israelis, they want to settle with us 3 accounts: future account, current account, historical account. What is the future account? Is that if we accept that Israel is a state for the Jews, then we are saying, or the Israelis will tell us, oh, you are calling for the right of return of the refugees. Ahmad Mahmoud cannot come back because this is a Jewish state, and Edmond George cannot come back because this is a Jewish state. One. Secondly, there are today 1.7 million Palestinians who live inside Israel. They are the original people who were there before the creation of the state of Israel. Yes, they live in Nazareth, in Haifa, in Jaffa, and everywhere. So the Israelis will tell them, what do you consider yourself, Palestinian? Okay, take your luggage and go to the Palestinian state. And the third important issue is the historical account. The Israelis, they want us to recognize the Jewish narrative about Palestine and to negate totally the Christian and Muslim narrative about Palestine, which we will never do. The issue here is not what you believe or what I believe. The issue here is a political issue. We need to settle this on political ground, not on religious ground. Yes, that is what we are saying. So the issues sometimes becomes complicated when you bring new issues always on the table. It means that you are not serious. Also, Israel signed an agreement with Jordan, with Egypt. Why didn't you ask Egypt to recognize Israel as a Jewish state? Why don't you ask Romania to recognize Israel as a Jewish state? Why don't you write a letter to Ban Ki-moon, tell him, dear Mr. Secretary General, from now on, the name of the state of Israel is the state of the Jewish blah, 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 blah. Call yourself whatever you want. Why is it that you're only asking the Palestinians to recognize Israel as a Jewish state? Because Israel wants to achieve political goals out of that recognition.
You mentioned as one important element of the negotiations, the mediator. What can John Kerry himself, for instance, do something that the two parties didn't reach so far?
Very good, very important question. Let me tell you. First of all, the mediator should know the facts very well. And I think John Kerry knows the facts very well. What are the facts? The facts is that the Palestinians have accepted to establish a Palestinian state on only 22% of what used to be Palestine. So West Bank and Gaza is only 22% of historical Palestine.
You are talking about the 1967 borders, don't you?
Exactly. We are talking about the 1967 border, which makes only 22% of the total area, which is an incredible big historical compromise that the Palestinians have done. That's one. So Secretary Kerry knows this very well. Secretary Kerry also, with the strategic relationship with Israel, he should have a very big leverage on the Israelis. You know what Netanyahu keep telling Secretary Kerry? If you want Iran to deliver on the nuclear weapon, keep the pressure, keep the sanctions, keep this, keep that. But again, I tell Secretary Kerry, if you want Netanyahu to deliver, you have to start some pressure. So because of your special and unique relationship with Israel, United States is the only party that can make Israel deliver. Not Europe, nobody else.
Romanian President Băsescu is present here in Israel and in the Palestinian territories. Do you think that he can bring closer reaching an agreement?
Romania in particular had excellent relationship with the two sides, with the Palestinians, with the Israelis. And I think while we welcome the visit of the President of Romania, we hope that he will give a serious push and to advise Netanyahu, to tell him that he is losing a historical moment, that the construction of settlement is not good. Romania is part of the European Union, which is implementing the European guidelines, which started January 1st about the settlements. And I think all of this effort is very important that we don't reach the 29th of April 2014 without an agreement. So I think his visit is very timely, very crucial. Romania, for us, has been a historical friend yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we appreciate also all what Romania is doing in the European Union to help Palestine. So I think ask him to advise Netanyahu not to lose the moment. Ask him to advise Netanyahu does not allow Israel to become an apartheid state. Ask him to tell Netanyahu to end the last occupation on earth. The Israeli occupation to the Palestinian people is the last occupation, last foreign occupation in the world.
Do you think that he will listen?
I think that, if Netanyahu does not listen, I think Romania, Europe, United States should do something else.